another edition of the Morning Cup. To another edition of the Morning Cup, in case you didn't understand that one. Morning, this show is for entertainment purposes only.
Yes, it is.
Hello, guys. Thanks for being here, and thank you for doing all of those things that Facebook despises. Something popped.
It sounded like two things.
It was. Both of my elbows popped. Ow. What the heck is that?
Oh my goodness, that was amazing.
Both my elbows went pow.
And you give me grief for doing that. Because you say one of these days my arms are going to
Yeah, but you
fly
do it intentionally.
I do.
And violently. You gotta see her at some point, man. She take that arm and she goes, BAM! And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh!
Because if I don't, it'll get stuck.
Man, yeah, your arm is gonna fall off.
No,
It's gonna fall off. Thanks, guys, for being here. Oh, Carrie over on YouTube says, good morning, pagers.
Good morning.
Let's see, Renee says, good morning, Renee. Good to
morning.
see ya. David says, hola, ¿cómo está? Así, ¿y tú? And Jay says, love the shirt, Lois.
Thank you very much.
We're wondering today's
Carrie's
episode.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Carrie's asking, what does the shirt say?
What do you mean? What does the shirt say?
Well, yeah.
What?
I'm in the wrong spot for people to actually be able to see it.
Okay, so sit up slightly and let them see it.
And it's bad choices make good stories.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, show them. There you go, see?
There we are.
Ta-da!
Because I have a chest.
Today's episode is brought to you by April Bowlby.
Yes, it is.
New star of the hit show, Doom Patrol.
Yep.
That show is cool. I still want to watch the rest of it.
Yes, so do I.
But we wanted to bring that up. Today's episode is brought to you by April Bowlby. Big shout out to her. Thank you for sponsoring the Morning Cup, whether you know it or not. Morning, the show is for entertainment purposes only.
Oh, boy.
What?
Really?
I don't even know, man. I don't even know. My guts is doing weird stuff, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I heard them this morning before
Probably
we
your
went
fault.
live. No.
Yeah.
No.
It's your fault. Everything's your fault. You know this. Suck it up.
No.
It's not. So, as you can see, my hair has gone to complete and utter.
It has.
I've given up on life, man.
And you should see it in person. Cause
It's even worse. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Can you even see how? Look at
Oh,
it.
my.
Bam! Look at that fracking disaster. There was actually somebody, I remember, this was, what, a month, 2, 3 months ago? I don't even know. But I remember it sticking out of my head. They're like, man, you look like you just rolled out of bed and got in front of a camera. That's what I do for a living. Suck it up, Buttercup.
Oh, boy.
What? I'm just saying.
But, I mean, you don't really just roll out of bed
No.
and come do this.
Now I sit here and
That
stare
would
at my
be-
computer monitor, drinking coffee, working on repressing my hatred for the world before I go live and entertain you guys. That's
Oh
my
my-
morning routine. What?
Oh, Carrie.
Carrie says, I couldn't see under your stuff. There was a big shadow.
Yeah, I do have a chest.
Oh, man. Oh, we love you, Carrie. That's epic. Dawn says, good morning from New Mexico.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dawn. And Roberta says, good morning. I hope you guys have an amazing day.
Good
Right
morning.
back at you. Thanks
Yes.
for being here. Make it an epic day.
Yes.
Unless you're us, and then it's going to be, oh, make it stop.
Yeah, because I have to get my homework done.
It's due tomorrow. You
I
haven't
know.
even started it.
I know. Council stuff, man. Council stuff.
I swear to... She spent like 50 plus hours on council crap this week, and it's only Thursday. We've got a wedding to plan, stuff to pack, homework to get done, vows to write, receptions to make, and what has gone on this week? Council crap. You guys better be appreciative. That's all I'm saying, because if you're not...
Well, I can take a little break because council, the meeting was last night. There's another meeting next week, so I can take a little break and, yeah.
Click, click, boom.
For a few minutes.
Yes. Let's take some people out. Anyway. Sorry. Woosah. Let me check the comments over here.
Wrong show.
Scott says, good morning, old Scott. And Roberta says, good morning. Oh,
it's a duplicate.
Apparently it duplicated itself.
Yep.
Weird. Well, good morning again. Good to see you.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. I just...
Wrong show.
I'm getting all itchy, man. Freaking.
Oh my God.
Did you see my title for today, Lois?
Morning cup of Thankfully Thursday, Thoughtfully Thursday, Throwback Thursday.
I don't know.
It's a Thursday.
It's Thursday. Yay. I don't even know, man. Excuse me.
Oh my goodness. Kelly is saying, good morning, beautiful people. Good morning.
The beautiful people. Ow, my head hurts now. I think I'm dizzy. Man, I'm too old to headbang. That's it, my life is over. I'm jumping off of the roof. Now that'll just break my legs. Damn it. What? Sorry. It just popped in there, man.
And Steven says, good morning from the blacks. Yeah, there's a conversation going.
Oh, there's a conversation going on.
Yes.
Ooh, you know what?
It's a good morning conversation.
Show the rest of our show. What do you got? Show the note to the teacher so we can read it to everybody else. Who remembers that? Who remembers that?
And Carrie's saying, welcome to the temperamental morning cup.
Are you calling me temperamental? I'm not temperamental. What?
Wow!
Dave over on YouTube says, I like when women wear shirts with writing. You may or may not be aware that is an unwritten contract wherein you have agreed to let us stare. And when you notice, we can say, just trying to read it. Amen, Dave. Yes.
He's touched on a subject.
I was going to say touched on what now?
Wait, no. I've never been one of the gals that it's like, no, up here. Because I know when I wear shirts like this.
She knows the mystical power she possesses. That's all I'm saying.
And
it cracks me up because I'm like, it works on me for crying out loud. What's this? That's just wrong, man.
But it's one of those, no matter how tiny I am or how much weight I gain, they're always there.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Sorry, my mind went somewhere else.
So, yeah.
I don't know. Warning, she must protect him for purposes
and
only.
PG-13.
Hit me. That was PG-13. Nobody knows what I'm talking about.
No,
What?
You can go to the store today and explain. Never mind.
Go to the store? What am I going to the store for?
We're out of toilet paper.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we are.
No, we're not.
Really?
Yep.
You took the last one out of the bag.
Yes, I did. And there's another one that's over by the coffee table because we took it for the boat trip on the other day.
Which we're going to be doing anyway.
What? Anyway, back to reality. Back to reality.
Oh my goodness.
Let's see. Dawn says, dig the t-shirt, Lois.
Thank you very much.
And Kelly says, yo mama and yo papa tried to tell you how to live.
Oh no.
They don't tell me how to live because I don't listen. And Darby has lost his mind.
Yeah, and so is Roberta.
Hi guys.
Morning.
So I went through the list of all the crap that we have to get done in the next day and a half. I also have to add to it shaving this freaking hippie do. Make the hippie do go away. What?
Nothing.
Hippie do. Hippie don't. I don't know. Hey.
Oh my God.
You know what that is? That's why I'm going crazier, because my hair is like little antennas picking up the waves of the universe. Where's my foil? Where's my foil? I gotta block out the waves, Lois. She did not like the foil yesterday. If you guys couldn't tell, I put that on and she was just done. She's like, you know what? It's supposed to be funny, but you crossed the line. I'm like, there's no such thing. And she's like, oh yes, that's right.
No.
She did not like my unicorn horn foil tin hat.
Oh,
I mean,
Lord.
tin foil hat, whatever. You know what I meant.
And Carrie says, I'm beginning to wonder if you took the wrong medication or if someone gave you some estrogen.
Me having estrogen? I don't know.
Oh, no.
Is that why?
And Renee over on Facebook's lost it.
Oh no! Oh no! We've lost Renee! Run away!
Oh, good Lord. What?
I don't know, man. I'm feeling feisty today.
I can tell. Is this leftovers from yesterday?
Leftovers from yesterday's what? What?
The council meeting.
Oh, we're not talking about that. This is the morning cup.
You
It's
were
supposed to be
talking
fun and entertaining.
being feisty, and I was wondering if it was
No, you were feisty.
reason.
But that was well planned and executed on my part. You're welcome, Page, Arizona. I got plans. I know how to do things, man.
What?
Just saying.
Now you make
Feed it early and don't feed it late. Okay? It's like the gremlins. You make sure that you skip some certain stuff and boom, stuff starts to happen. You're welcome. Anyway, moving on. Carrie says, see? Mood swings. Swings. I'm on one side. I'm on the other side. I'm on the east side. I'm on the west side.
Oh no!
What? It's not mood swings. I'm insane, man.
Oh.
Not on a swing. It's, you know what? It's more like a roulette wheel.
Oh,
And you never know where it's gonna land, man.
oh.
52 black. Nope, not red. Put it on the lines of the quarters. Maybe it'll all be at the same time. What?
It's a good thing I have to do my homework today.
So much other stuff to get done.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I still have to finish my bouquet.
I thought it was done.
No, it's not.
Yeah, you gotta put the ribbon.
I have to find the glue gun. We put it somewhere. It's one of those. You
Every
put it
time
somewhere.
we need a freaking glue gun, I gotta buy another one. We got glue guns coming out of our ears and we can't find any of them. But yeah, for those of you that don't know, that are just joining us or what have you, you know, that marriage. That's what brings us together tonight. She's making her own bouquet out of fake flowers, and so she's getting all crafty with it, and it looks quite lovely.
Oh, I thank you.
She did a good job.
Thank you.
And, your dress was successfully altered.
Yes. Woo! Thank you very much, Christine.
Yes, awesome. Yeah.
Do appreciate it.
That was amazing.
Yes.
Yay.
Woo!
But, and don't forget, today's episode is brought to you by April Mobley.
Yes.
Hashtag Doom Patrol. Anyway, let's see. Carrie says, your angel and devil are not just arguing. War has been declared. Yes, it's mad. Mutually assured destruction. And look, I turned into you with reading comments. All of a sudden, my ability to read went away.
I see.
And Dave says over on YouTube, yeah, he is either going the way of Caitlyn Bruce Jenner or is channeling his inner snowflake. My inner snowflake is like a freaking ice age. It will destroy you all. What? And Carrie says, LOL Dave.
You got a bunch of
let me catch up on the Facebook side. I got an angry face. I saw an angry face. Who's angry? Who's angry? I will take you out.
Oh my goodness.
Darby says, good job. All right. And Diana says, it's the shirt making him feisty. You know what? You could be right. You could be right.
Oh.
And Kelly has lost her mind with Snoopy and Woodstock over there. All right. And Renee says, it's pre-wedding giddiness. Pre-wedding giddiness. I don't know. No, it's not. It's just one of those days, man. And Don says, Sheldon Jr., I can see the background screen on your t-shirt. You look transparent. Yes, it's my stolen military active camouflage technology. These parts are, blending in.
Oh my.
What? I'll show you blending.
Oh, Carrie.
I did Not touching that one, Carrie. Naughty. Wait. Anyway, moving on. Scoot on. Silence.
Wow.
Diana says, P.S. I have lots of good stories.
Nice. I think we all do.
Yeah, well, those are the best kind. And Darby says, Chris, mixing coffee and Red Bull is probably not a good idea for you. You must be running in turbo mode today. No, I hate Red Bull. It tastes like piss. Carbonated piss. And I will not drink carbonated piss. I hate it. I hate all of those energy drinks, actually. And I've only had a mild amount of coffee today. For some reason, I am just... Maybe she's right. It's your fault. But I mentioned that at the beginning of the show. It's always your fault. Those things get me in trouble. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, Dave.
Dave. Naughty.
Dave and Carrie, man. Dave
You
and
guys
Carrie.
over on YouTube are having a good old time, isn't it?
Oh.
Dawn says, good morning,
Good
Dawn.
morning, Dawn.
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Morning, your show is for the table purposes. Right there. It says it right
Oh.
there.
Oh.
What?
I just...
I was on a roll, man.
You're definitely on a roll. Yeah, that would be pretty much it.
What?
Wow.
Anyway.
Oh, no.
Oh, what did I miss something?
Oh. I haven't gotten to that part in that series, Carrie.
Oh, okay. Carrie says over on YouTube, seeing Sheldon as a prosecutor in the Ted Bundy movie had me messed up. That doesn't sound pleasant. I don't even want to think about that. Yeah, that's kind of odd. But anyway, oh look, there's some coffee in my mug.
Oh, good Lord.
What? It's almost like I had 2 pots of coffee today.
It is.
I don't even know.
It really is. That would explain, Darby's comment about not mixing Red Bull.
Yeah, I don't do the Red Bulls, man.
I know.
I know people that do. More power to you. Just saying.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
What?
Scott's poking a hornet's nest over on Facebook.
Oh, all right. Let me see what's going on over here. Let's see. Scott says, Chris, did you get your vows done yet? LOL. No, I have not. Well, thank you for asking.
And why not?
Been busy. Yeah, a little busy. Little busy. Probably gonna have to do it on the boat on Saturday. What? Have you done yours yet?
I have some of it done.
Sure. Do you have any of your homework done?
No.
Mm-hmm. Which one's due on Friday? Which is tomorrow.
Oh.
I'm all out of brains. What am I without them? Me. Gary says y'all should watch Lucifer. Been binge watching myself. We love that show.
Yes,
we're waiting for the new season.
Yeah,
that show is amazing. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. But before you check that out, make sure you check out Doom Patrol. Because today's episode is brought to you by April Wolf. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just saying.
Kelly says, gotta run, hitting the road for Paige. I'll be at the Beehive free campsite. Come see me. Oh, I know where you're talking about. So, exactly how is that a free campsite? Is there like a Facebook page that say, hey, free places to hang out around Paige? I've been curious because there's a whole crap ton of motorhomes over there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
now
the Beehive is that big
what the
rock
Beehive
thing.
is.
Yeah, and you know, right across over there's like campers everywhere. It's like, what's going on? Anyway, welcome back to Paige.
Yes.
We hope to see you. That's awesome.
Drive safe.
Yes, please drive safe. There are lunatics everywhere. When you get towards Horseshoe Bend, slow down. They're crazy. Diana says, if enough vodka is in it to mask the taste, maybe. Oh, she's talking about the Red Bull. I don't even want to contemplate that. That's just gross, man.
I don't like any of this.
Yeah. I am not an energy drink person. I do not need it. Sam, I am. If my energy is low, eventually it will pick back up. If it doesn't, I just let it happen, man. Not that, Lois. Not that. And Dave over on YouTube says, I love watching Lucifer. Yes, it's a great show. But don't forget, check out Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol. Yes. Because April Bowlby is sponsoring today's show. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's called Google in the 21st century. Figure it out. What?
I had a lack of brain moment the other day. Oh, shush. When I was ordering the ribbon for altering the dress.
Oh, yeah. Huh?
And Christine, she was nice enough and volunteered to alter it.
Oh, yes.
But
your dress.
Yes.
Okay, because you're like leaving out lots of stuff and stuttering around. I'm like confused.
So I had to order the ribbon, and I texted her and I asked her, okay, what's single face and what's double face? Without realizing, I could just Google it.
Yes, Google is your friend. It is one of the most valuable survival skills of the 21st century.
It was like, what?
Oh, man, let me check the comments over here on the Facebook. Michael says, good morning. Good morning. And Darby says there will be a comprehensive exam called Marriage next week. Oh, by the way, so if you guys don't know, we are going to be doing videos and pictures and blah, 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 and stuffs. So, yeah. We aren't going to be doing regularly scheduled programming, but expect weirdness from us. And if there aren't enough likes or anything on them, then we will stop posting them. So make sure if you see them, you spread them. Just saying. Because I would rather be doing other things. Just saying. So if you guys want more pictures and things like that, you better make it worth my time. We love you guys. I'm just messing with you. Or am I?
Oh,
and Chris says, why do you have holes in your shirt? You missed the active camouflage lecture. This is military technology that I have stolen. It is active camouflage, so parts of me are invisible. We are testing it out every once in a while here on the Morning Cut because we are privy to secret technologies, or perhaps we stole it. Warning, show us for purposes only. Crap, there's going to be black helicopters in the sky soon. What?
There was an article that came across my newsfeed this morning where I believe it was the Washington Post actually did an in-depth on the CIA and their monitoring of social media.
Yeah, they're probably looking at us and like, how do you do this? If they can't figure it out, they shouldn't be in their current job positions.
Well, the funny thing is they were talking about companies that I actually had to research for one of my degrees.
Oh,
for
nice.
one of my bachelor's degrees. And I'm like, y'all are just not figuring this out.
I know. It's like, wait, what? Government's a little behind in times. It happens. What do you do? And if you think that this particular thing here is amazing, you should have seen Lois yesterday. She was ahead in arms.
No, it was Monday.
Was it?
Monday or Tuesday. One of the
I thought it was yesterday.
No, it was not.
I don't believe you.
It wasn't yesterday.
Wasn't I wearing my tinfoil unicorn hat yesterday and poking your invisible head?
No.
I thought it was.
You were wearing
Now you're bothering me.
Oh, no.
Now you're going to... Now I got to look.
I'm bothering you.
Yes, you're in my spot, Lois. You're in my spot, Lois.
Oh, no.
What? Oh, and Facebook's doing some weird stuff, too, today, guys. I don't even know.
Oh, yeah.
But also, thank you guys for being here. And thank you for doing all of the things that Facebook hates. Do the stuff, Lois, while I'm waiting for this thing. Yes. Thank you for doing all the things that Facebook hates. Such as... Oh, you popped. It's not just me. Yay. Oh, no, you okay. We were Batmans together.
We were.
All right, so it was the other day. Fine, you're right. Let's see. Carrie says, snap a head off faster than a riled up junkyard dog. That's what I do. Unless she's talking about something else and I don't remember. It has been more than 30 seconds. Diana says, the only bummer about Google is the kids don't come to parents for info, hand-me-downs anymore. Yes, but you know what? There are things that you can show them that Google can't. Although YouTube probably could. But, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real-life experiences. There's a difference between having knowledge and experience getting passed down. But now YouTube can kind of do that. Let's see. Going back over to Facebook. What's going on over there, Lois?
I'm just...
Darby says, only explanation is the font choice. Needed extra room for the pixels, so Chris took one for the team and sacrificed the pixels on his shirt. Yeah.
And his body, apparently.
Yeah, and my body. Debbie says, good morning, Debbie. Morning. You have missed the excitement. Thank you for being here. And don't forget, today's show is brought to you by April Bowlby. Check out Doom Patrol. Awesome show. New superhero show. And Renee's going...
Oh my.
And Diana has lost her mind. And Carrie says, talk much? LOL, joking. Yes, I do. But only in private or here on the interwebs.
Yeah.
If you meet me in public, it's a whole
It's
different
clam.
story.
You do.
You call me seafood. I hate seafood.
But you go, and you won't talk.
That's my normal self. I'm just saying. This ain't natural right here. It's different.
But it is natural. Yeah.
What?
I mean, this is conversations we have.
This is true. Yes, behind closed doors, apparently, this is how I am. But out in public, this is a totally different story.
Public?
Public.
Oh my.
It's Greek. Or would that be Roman? I don't know. It's Latin. This is public. I mean public. What?
Oh no.
Come on, man. You messing with me now.
Oh,
Jiminy crickets.
oh.
David says, Google is not who my drill sergeant told me my friend is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but your drill sergeant, I'll tell you what. Unless you had a good one, they get you into some trouble. That happened to me. And it was a drill instructor for myself. Yeah. We're like, oh, yeah, it'll be fine. You just volunteer.
Oh, yeah.
I'll never pick you. Lion sex a beat. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. Carrie over on the YouTube says never. Oh,
No.
Man. Not saying it because people are going to do it.
No.
Oh, no. She's scarred for life, though. We will pass
But there are,
on.
but you know what? That does touch on some things, though. There are some.
Is that a pun, Lois?
No. There are some things that you just don't want to Google.
Yeah, but that
At
comes
all.
with experience.
And you end up, just like they were looking for something in particular, you end up getting scarred for life.
Yeah, it's like what the heck is that? Like,
It's like, no.
I'm dying, man. I am dying.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, obviously a fully booked week. Apparently, I just gotta get my hair cut.
Yeah, you do.
I don't want it. It takes too long. I know it's gotta get done.
Clink, 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 clink.
Oh, yeah,
It's
that's
my
the
sound
blinkies?
my sound effects.
I was like, what's going on over there? Some jiggling?
No. I'm not that old yet.
Not what I meant. Oh my god. Ah! Oh.
Really? You're gonna woo-saw now?
Yep, I brought it out. So one of the things I had to do was get some new anchor line / dock line for the LPNN the yacht.
Carrie, Dave, no. I am preempting the comments with a no.
And I just happened to look over and there it is. So better behave yourself, Lois. That's all I'm saying. What?
13 loops if you're doing it right.
13 loops.
13 reps if you're doing it right.
I'm just gonna use some of my Boy Scout knots on you. That's all I'm saying.
And don't ask me how I know this.
13 knots? Where does that even come from? Now I'm confused. What? If I Google that, am I going to be scared? Or scarred?
Oh, Carrie.
Oh, no, not talking about it, Carrie. Behave yourself over on YouTube. Everybody on YouTube. And that's funny because I just brought out the rope.
Yeah, that's just a little
I'm not going into that one. Oh, man, I don't even know. But yeah, so I got some dock line / anchor line that I will be putting on the boat because we're going to need it to tie up stuffs.
to tie up stuffs.
Yes, to tie up stuffs. Mostly boat stuffs. Unless you misbehave, Lois. Or if we want to tie you to the mast and you can be like, what about Bob? I'm sailing!
I hate that movie.
I know. I love it.
I hate that
I can't
movie.
believe you hate that movie. It's an
cannot-
amazing movie.
I cannot stand that movie.
Why? What's wrong with it?
I told you I relate way too much with Richard Dreyfuss's character to be able to enjoy that movie. I really do.
That is hilarious. That's all I'm saying, man. That is all I'm saying. That's just funny. I don't know. I mean, because I do feel for his character as well, but it's a good movie. It's
No,
fun.
I didn't say I feel for his character. I relate too much.
Oh, are you saying I'm Bob?
At times, maybe.
Hey! That's just not nice.
Oh. Oh, really? Really? Oh, my goodness.
Because you hate the movie, so do you hate me? Keep it up. What? Carrie says, banjo music is now in my head. Uh-oh.
Yep.
Ding, 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 ding.
Because when you pulled out the rope, she started thinking about Deliverance.
Oh, yeah, I still haven't seen that.
No, he hasn't.
Scott says, I can cut your hair, Chris. Well, actually, I can cut my own hair as well, but I have to get it done at a shop because it's the wedding, and she won't let me cut my hair anymore because, yeah, it's stuff. I know, believe me. Believe me. Kelly says, you can borrow our vows. We already have them wrote down. You will just have to change the names. I can't do that. That's cheating. Email me. Just kidding. It was a joke, man. What?
Now you're going to get everybody to email you vows.
Yeah, and then I can composite my own thing together. Oh, never mind. I wouldn't do that.
Baloney. I mean, we talked about this, yesterday or the day before? And you mentioned maybe just Google some.
I wouldn't do such a horrible thing.
Oh, yes, you would.
Oh, man. David says, Lois, give him a hair bonnet. Nice. And Diana says, must be time to switch to YouTube. How come? What's going on?
The conversation that we're not
Oh, yeah. About. The one that we're not following on YouTube. Yes. If you want to, hey, for entertainment purposes only. It's supposed to be PG-13. That's why we're not reading those comments out loud. And John says, good morning, LPN. How's the morning cup? Anything interesting this morning? Lots. You missed most of it. What are you owing?
Nothing.
Did you have your foot on my chair?
No.
Uh-huh. That's what happens. Keep yourself on your side of the line. On your side. Stay on your side. Wording the show is for entertainment purposes only. Oh. I was like, what are you doing? She's Vanna Whiting.
Poorly.
Yes. I mean, these things happen. What do you do? But anyway, yes, you have missed quite a bit. All kinds of fun things going on. Today's episode is brought to you by April Bowlby. # Doom Patrol. Make sure you go check it out, man. It's cool. She was nice enough to sponsor the show, whether she likes it or not, so check out her stuff. And it's a superhero show, so you can't beat that. And it's really dark.
Yeah, not for kids.
No. Let's see. Oh, hold on. Let me catch back over here. John says, by the way, seen you the other day, said hi. You just look, LOL. You gotta say it louder or catch my attention, because I'm usually focused on other stuff. I didn't see
And
him.
He's deaf.
Yeah, yes, actually, I am personally.
He is very, very hard of hearing.
So yeah, if you see me, and then if you do say hi, remember, I have no idea who the hell you are, so let me know. Because based on a little tiny disc that's way over on the side of the room, it says Mr. John Begay, but I can't see the picture, so I don't know what you look like.
And it looks like there's 2.5 people in there because of how Facebook cut it.
Yes, but it's better than, like, a lot of people, they have, like, dogs or flowers or something, and I'm like, I don't know who you are. So, yeah, make sure you say hi, come up, introduce yourself.
Yes.
We had that happen again the other day at Walmart. People are like, hey, how you doing? We watch your show over there. We're like, yeah, cool, awesome. And then I look at you and I'm like, do you know who the hell that was? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay, just checking.
No, usually I can tell. But
yeah, sometimes you just cannot tell.
Yeah, no.
It's just not the way it works, man. I don't even know.
Oh no!
But yeah, sorry I missed your wave. Make sure you're more assertive next time.
Yes.
And stomp in and say, "No, I am John Begay," and we'll be like, "Hey!" And let's see. Hold on. The comments are jumping everywhere. Renee says, "Okay, Sheldon Jr., where's the tape to split the room?"
I had my foot on his chair, though.
Yeah, and I moved my foot backwards, and she's not wearing shoes, and I am. I win. Stay on your side. Where's the tape? I've got rope. Just saying. Get some rope. Let's see. John says, sure will, Chris, LOL. Gonna walk myself to school. It's gonna be graduating preschool. Awesome.
I'm gonna walk my son to school.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's really small over there. He's going to walk your son to school. It's going to be graduation preschool. That's awesome. Congrats. Tell him we said congrats. That's amazing. That's a big accomplishment.
And David says nair. Not hair.
Nair. What? Oh!
A nair bonnet, not a hair bonnet.
What? Are you sure? Oh, I see it. Okay, I missed it. It's small. And the comments were jumping. A nair bonnet. Hey, you be nice. Let's see. Buren says, good morning. Back in 95, we went on an 8th grade trip, attempted to hike to Rainbow Bridge. It failed. Y'all might have heard of it. No, I haven't. Are you talking about this Rainbow Bridge right here? Is this what we've heard? Yes, we've heard of Rainbow Bridge. I have not heard of your failed hike, however. Nope. But that is one hell of a hike.
It is.
That is not an easy... And in 8th grade, whoever planned that didn't think it through. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. Hold on, I have to read this before I read it.
And I love how, okay, so...
Hold on, I gotta read it now. Carrie over on YouTube says, now I feel like Eminem the rapper or of the morning cup. LOL. The FCC won't let me be or let me be me. You can totally be you. It just doesn't mean we're gonna read your comments. We think they're hilarious, but the show just can't hack it, man. Because there's kids that watch.
There are.
We have met them. They come up to us and introduce themselves. Remember about that job again? They come up and say, hey, we want
And I think the youngest was, what, 5, 6 years old?
I don't know. It's young.
Yeah, really
which
young.
is kind of scary. I'm just saying. Gina says it did say nair. Yes, it's my fault. I apologize.
And going back to Carrie's comment, I love how she spelled Eminem's name.
Eminem's name, yes. The rapper Eminem is spelled exactly like the candy. Apparently she wants to eat him. Is he another Momoa? That's all I'm asking. Just a straightforward question. Is there something you want to let us know, Carrie?
Wow.
You only get that chance once in a lifetime. You see what I did there?
Yes.
All right. Well, I think it was opportunity, but whatever.
It was opportunity.
Yeah, I know. I messed it up, man. I messed up my own funny. But you knew what it was. Shh. Let's see. Dave says, that's not the FCC. It's Chris the Man keeping assisted down. That's it, man. Got me some rope. That's all I have to say about that.
Oh, no.
This show has degenerated rapidly.
When doesn't it?
This is true. Although today it seems to have accelerated quite a bit.
Yeah, it started that way.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Lois.
Really?
I'm just saying.
Oh, my goodness. You're practicing your knots.
Yes, because
on the morning show.
It calms me.
It calms you?
It calms me.
Yeah. Our audience is not going to like you calm.
Oh. Well, I don't know. Maybe if I start dancing a jig. I did that last night too.
You did.
I don't even know what happened. I told her she was dancing an Irish jig on or around something. I'm not going to go into it. But anyway. And the only song that popped into my head was her doing an Irish jig. Like,
and he said rain dance. Specifically a rain dance.
Rain dance.
Or not rain dance, river dance.
River dance, man. I think she was river dancing on something. But anyway. And the song that popped in my head was and I was like, no, that's not quite right. And she's like, what are you doing?
I called him on it and he goes, eh.
It's like my turkey sound. Apparently I get things mixed up sometimes. It happens. What can I say?
It's just, oh my goodness. It was amazing. It was just, yeah.
I don't even know. Scott says they are coming to take you away. Ha! They're coming to take me away.
You want to talk about manipulation? There you go.
Hey! What is going on over there?
Scott likes listening to you sing.
Oh, man. I'm all out of songs. What am I without? And boring, apparently. I don't even know.
Oh, my goodness.
What? Oh, man. Now what do I do?
Oh, and Gina's saying rain, river, they're both water.
What are we talking about?
Because I said rain dance instead of river dance.
Oh, yeah.
And she said rain, river, they're both water.
Yeah, but there's two different connotations and styles of dance to think about mentally to wrap your hand around.
Yeah.
Or head around. That's not what I meant. Anyway.
But, it was river dance.
Yeah, river dance.
Just with the Mexican hats on.
Not my fault, man. It just popped in there. What popped in there, right?
Good Lord.
Let's see. Carrie says, right, let's think of a rap name for me. I can't. I'm not touching it, Dan. What? Stop it, Lois. Behave yourself.
No!
They're coming to take me away. Oh, yeah. You know what's funny is I start out singing ha ha ho ho hee hee. By the time I'm done, I'm actually laughing that way. It like transforms in my brain and comes out separately. Like ha ha ho ho hee ha ho hee. See? I did it again.
See, and you make fun of me when we talk about accents and the fact that I get stuck in them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Arr. Carrie says not a stripper name. And Dave says Special K. Oh man, Carrie gonna hurt you. But I like that.
Just
That's
add milk.
Oh! Warning, this show is for entertainment purposes only. Lois! Lois! Oh my goodness!
I couldn't.
What did you do? I can't! You broke me! What the ever-loving bleep just came out?
I can't.
Oh, Lois!
I couldn't help it. I just couldn't help it.
Oh, you have... that's it. We're done. You have jumped the shark yet again.
Oh, you've read my shirt.
This is true. Actually, I haven't yet. Let me see. What does it say? I can't read it. Hold on, let me catch up on some comments over here on Facebook. Gina says, that was an old one. Scott says, you're not boring, you all are hilarious. Well, yay, I'm glad to hear it. And David says, hat dance de Mexico. And Renee, you have horrified Renee. Look at that face, Lois. Look what you did to poor Renee. And Don says, I want some of what you guys are doing. No, you don't. I don't know if you can handle it, man. The craziness is strong today. And Renee has lost her mind.
It's called Folgers.
Oh, no. Carry over on YouTube says, oh, I like it. But it sounds like I should be writing the short bus. Oh, my goodness. That actually brings me a story to mind. I'm not going to go into too many specifics. I tried to make that joke to someone one time. Be like that, this I'm talking to this person. Okay, it wasn't you, Lois, it wasn't you. But I'm talking to you, and then someone happens to do something particularly moronic around me, and we're like, wow, they must ride the short bus. A person here was like, I don't understand what that joke means. And I'm like, what do you mean? They rode the short bus. I mean, it's kind of like one of those references that everybody kind of gets. And they looked at me and they said, but I rode a short bus to school. They couldn't understand the level of laughter that came out of me and the fact that I almost fell on the floor. I was just like, oh my God, they just said it. No! Like they actually rode the short bus. It was amazing and actually true, but I'm not going to go into that one. All right, let's see. Carrie says, I want to go to the zoo. I'm not sure what's happening.
Neither am I. I don't think I want to know.
Me either. I don't know what's happening over there. And Dawn has lost her mind. And David says, Chris, behave. Lois is entrusting you with two big choices today. I'm not touching that, or am I? I don't get it. I'm moving on. Renee says, remember, they got coffee from California stand yesterday.
We're not using it.
We're not using it yet. But maybe, you know what? I did touch the box. It could be rubbing off. It's from California, Stan. Who knows? You know what? It's going to give me cancer because it's from California. I'm just saying. Kelly says Sir Chris a lot. Nice.
For a rap name for you.
I like that. Gina says, I understand that reference. I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
Really?
Nope, I do not understand what is going on anymore.
Short bus.
Oh, the short bus. I know, but there was somebody that I was talking to. They just, you don't understand. And I can't go into it, but it matched up with who I was talking to. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Carrie says it's a Dr. Demento song, not the previously mentioned Zoo, just to clarify. Oh, okay. I love Dr. Demento. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. It was one of those things. I have derailed. Going off the rails on a crazy train. I edited it in there. You see what I did?
I heard what you did.
I put it together. What? I said it together.
Oh my.
It's what brings us together.
Oh, and I had a headache before we started.
Oh, do you have headaches?
I still have another one.
Oh, man.
And Gina says, thank you, Lois. You're welcome, Gina.
For what? Why is she thanking you? I'm lost, man. What did I do? I'm so lost.
I swear to goodness, guys, he is being honest right now.
I don't understand.
Because it truly has been more than 30 seconds.
Oh, so vicious, man. It's not hold on, I gotta filter comments in my brain first.
Oh no, just don't.
All right. All right. Moving on. You guys are epic, by the way.
So Gina is thanking me for reminding you her comment for the reference was for the short bus.
Oh, see, you had to remind me. Oh man, at some point this is going to be like the who's on first joke, man.
It's staying there. I think we're on second.
And Renee is playing basketball with her head. All right. And Gina's like, yes, that is me today. I am on the short bus today.
Yes, Diana.
Diana says, Lost in Space, danger, Will Robinson, danger.
Oh my God.
We don't even know what I'm talking about. Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
That would be the robot. Thank you very much.
I wasn't sure. I just didn't know.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe I should just make random barnyard sounds from now on.
No.
Just till the end.
We will lose our viewership because their animals will go nuts.
That's why I'm doing it quietly.
I just no. My brain hurts.
Your brain hurts.
Yeah, right here.
Right there. Apparently, I'm giving her a migraine. But coming up, you're going to have more issues. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Oh.
You said yes.
So, I did. Oh. I am not denying this. I did say yes. And
Carrie says, I have a comment, but I'm battling with the angel on my shoulder.
Just go ahead and comment. We won't read it.
Oh, yeah. Well, we will read it, just not out loud.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We love it. Apparently, YouTube is where what shall we say, the darker side of the show is hanging out.
You got a couple over on Facebook.
Oh, let me catch up. Let me see what we have over here. Gina says you are lost in space, Chris. Yeah, I think so.
And Diana says Old MacDonald had a farm.
E-I-E-I-O. Anyway, David says it is almost here, folks, and then everything will be back to normal.
No, it won't. I think it'll be a little off kilter, more so.
Renee, she's got something riding a rainbow. It's after me, Lucky Charms. Kill it. That's the first thing that popped in my head. What is that?
I don't know.
It looks like something. I don't know. Maybe it. Oh, it's kind of like a lizard person. I don't know. At first, I was thinking maybe it was a bear, and then the Gummy Bear song stuck in my head. Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere.
I actually busted into that on our way out of the meeting last night.
Oh, man.
Goodness.
Oh, I just drank a comic, Carrie.
Yep.
Oh,
if you want to
goodness.
see them, they're on YouTube.
Yes, the dark side of the channel is hanging out on YouTube today. You guys are great.
Oh my goodness. That was amazing.
Scott says, I see a straight jacket in the near future.
Oh,
you
no.
know, yeah, but you know what? It made me feel nice and comfy when I'm sleeping. Because I give myself a hug. Dave.
No.
No.
No. No. No.
I'm not touching it, man, but Dave, that's good. And,
Jerry, that's horrifying.
and yet I'm dying right now. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that noise was horrifying. I'm just saying.
Oh, and you know, the sad part is I still haven't seen the movie.
I know.
But I know apparently just enough to trigger folk. That's all I'm saying.
There's a reason.
Oh. Woosah.
Oh, there is no Musa.
So yeah, guys, once again, today's episode brought to you by April Bowley, who is probably absolutely horrified at the direction this show is taken.
I do apologize.
Hashtag Doom Patrol. Their stuff is dark, but ours... Just saying.
However, some of that cast...
Huh?
Some of that cast may be as dark as we are.
Well, I don't know if the cast is, but the characters certainly are.
No. I mean, I what I'm meaning is actual people wise,
Oh,
not
okay.
not acting, but actual people.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, Carrie. No, that's from the movie.
Yes, I know. I'm not saying it.
Good.
I'm filtering myself. I'm gonna sit over here and just be quiet now. Lord, I apologize. Please be with the Star Pygmies and New Guinea. Oh no. What?
Nothing.
So, are you looking forward to our trip coming up there?
Yes, I am.
Yay.
Why wouldn't I be?
I don't know. Sometimes I worry. You see the sides of me come out that aren't normally exposed to the light of
You
day?
mean like tinfoil?
Yeah, I guess if you can survive that, you can survive anything.
Just saying.
I can't believe you were so horrified by my tinfoil.
I was.
She was really disturbed.
I was. Talking about it's one thing, but actually seeing it is a completely different story.
Hey, man.
I'm just saying.
Challenge accepted.
Oh, good lord.
Oh,
Carrie.
Carrie.
We love you. She says, go rock yourself in a corner, the double one.
Diana says, you should come up with an app to merge comments. They have one on the thing, and it's broken and doesn't work. It's probably best that we keep them separated. And if you think I have time to develop an app, you are sadly mistaken. I am way too busy doing other crap. It takes a lot of work to get those done. And if you want to pay somebody to do it, and do it well, it costs a crap ton of money. So, yeah, that ain't happening.
Yeah, 5 figures.
Yeah, it ain't cheap, man.
Without the decimal point.
David says, nice cup, Lois. Everyone should buy one.
Yes.
Why, yes, it's LVN the cup, the morning cup. And this is actually the motivational cup.
It is.
Show them, Lois. Ooh, look at that. Here, I'll hold it up there a little bit closer so you guys can see. Yeah! If you want to know what it says, go to the website or purchase your own. But yes, LPN in the cut. We also have a Rupert edition of that. If you guys are interested in purchasing swag from LPNN, you can go to LakePowellNews.com and hit the fandom button at the top of the page.
Oh, Scott.
Uh-oh, have we lost our minds? Oh, Renee's got the alien drinking the coffee going. All right, come on, let's go. What?
Oh, Scott.
Oh, no. What did we do? What did we do?
I think if he had his choice, Scott, it would be standard.
Scott says, do you need a padded room or a standard room? I kind of like the padded, actually, because when you bounce off the walls, it's a little more
No,
fun.
what I'm getting at, because I read it wrong.
Oh.
And what I read was, do you need a padded room or is it standard?
Oh, yeah, that's standard equipment.
So your comment actually reaffirmed what I had said. If given the option, it would be standard.
And Carrie, in response to the comments merging, gotta keep them separated. And she says now the song is stuck in her head.
Oh my goodness.
Gotta keep them separated. What?
Oh.
I'm all out of jokes. What am I without them?
Oh no.
What? I have broken Lois, man. I don't even know what's going on over here. Holy cow. Oh my goodness, look at the time. Wow. Well, the insanity train is done for today. Well, at least for you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us aboard the crazy train. We appreciate it. Thank you for doing all the things that Facebook hates, such as... Oh man, you guys are amazing. Have an epic Thursday, and we will catch you on the next one.
Most definitely.
Who's ready for some over?
I am.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.